Greetings, Uncle Travelling Matt here, and I'm reporting at the end of day 3 of my trip to Bulgaria. So, haven't been very far today. We're staying in Veliko Turnovo, and we've just basically been around Veliko Turnovo today. Now, Veliko Turnovo is a city in the center of Bulgaria. It's a very old city. It used to be, for a period, the capital of Bulgaria, and it is also the city where the modern day state of Bulgaria was proclaimed. It's the whole region around it is where the ferment of revolution in the 19th century, which led to an independence movement, which led to then the Russians coming in and fighting and kicking out the Turks in the 1870s. And over the days that follow, we will be going to other sites associated with this. But it's quite a remarkable city. There's a river, I think it's called the Yantra, and it loops around very tightly in a kind of gorge, and on the slopes and on the hills above it, and also in the valleys as well, is where the city lies. So it's a very vertical city, lots of houses with a door on one street and then 2 floors below a door on another street on the other side of the house, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's Veliko Turnovo. I've been before. On my very first trip to Bulgaria, I came here. It's one of those places you really should see once in your life. It's quite a spectacular place. But although I went on my first trip to Bulgaria, I didn't really know what I was looking at. I think partly because there weren't guidebooks. There was no Lonely Planet then. There was, I think, a rough guide, but it wasn't very good. On my first trip, there may not have even been a rough guide. I'm not sure. But and I went on my own because I was staying with my friend Eva at that trip, and she couldn't come for some reason on that day. So that day I went on my own to Turnovo, and I remember wandering around the streets as far as the citadel, the Tsarevet citadel, but I didn't go inside, probably because I didn't have a lot of money to spend. And so, yes, I didn't really see most of it, and today I've rectified that mistake. So, been by the way, I can't remember when I did my video last night. I think it was late, but we had an amazing meal last night, and overlooking the gorge and part of the city. It was incredible. Um, but this morning, woke up about 9:30, and we were out, and we walked into the old communist centre of the town because Alex needed to go to the post office and send some postcards, and I enjoyed that because, as you know, I have a soft spot for communism, and the communists, as with many towns, they created a kind of new model centre area, and I took some photos that felt almost like those communist postcards you got in the 70s and 80s, you know, with a perfect blue sky and these brave new world buildings, and you got the communist feel in the post office because. And I remember when I lived there, like, they are the most bureaucratical places going, and the customer service is horrendous, and nothing has changed. Like, we were in there, and for the simple task of buying stamps for a postcard, so Alex wanted some stamps for a postcard, and he looked on the website, and they were one lever 90 each. But they were saying no, they're 3 lever. They're not 2 lever. They're 3 lever. I mean, forget the tense of thinking it. And he's like, but I've been on the website. This is the price on the website. And they're like, well, don't know about that, but this is the price. So, you know, obviously the website's wrong or they're wrong. And in the end, he's like, okay, I'll just pay 3 lever. And then they got confused by how many he wanted, and I had to translate. And yeah, it was just a very, very Byzantine process that shouldn't have been. But I remember when I lived there, it was always the same. I always had to leave an hour or so to deal with the post office because it was a nightmare. So yeah. I mean, there's a lot I like about communism, but the bureaucracy, not good, and still alive and kicking in places. But then we walked along the street. I think it was called General Gurov Street, who was one of the liberators, the Russian general that liberated it. And it's got some really pretty houses on both sides. We went to a house museum. I think it's the Sarah Coffin House, something like that. If it isn't, I'll put the correct name in the blurb. But yeah, it would help if I had the guidebook, wouldn't it, with all the names of these places. But Alex has got that. It's in the room and he's asleep now, so it's not happening. But yeah, it was one of these traditional houses, very much like the one I'm sat in now, actually. And they call them national revival houses because it's the time when the nation was being revived as a concept. They look to me very much like any other Ottoman house, except the ones in Turnovo seem to have a slightly different design in that, like this house, there's the main room with rooms off it, and then upstairs there's a balcony all the way around looking round. It's not the best use of space, but it's quite a pleasant way to arrange a house. So yeah, so that's that. And this one was quite nice, and I was having a chat with the lady. Interesting, she showed us a picture of talking about in the Ottoman times, and there was a lot of mosques there, and they've all gone now. She said, bar one near the university, which is now a private house. And again, going back onto the theme I was saying earlier about this rewriting of history, where this Christian Bulgarian nature broke free of the Ottoman yoke, which it did, but there was also a sizable Turkish population there as well that have now all disappeared. It's like 2% of the population of Turkey is Turkish, if that. Where are the rest of them? Where did they go? Then continued along. Wanted to go to the Museum of the National Liberation Struggle, but it was shut. And that was in the building where the first Bulgarian Parliament of the modern era was held. So shame that was shut, but there was a prison museum around the back. So we went to the prison museum where Vasilevsky, the revolutionary, and several other revolutionaries were held, and had a look in the cells, and that was quite nice because it was cool and it was so hot outside. And then we went on. We went to the cathedral, which is quite modern. I think it was about 1920s. It was a bit dingy and yeah, not that impressive. And then we went. We had our lunch. We had I don't know, a nice chicken soup, and then went down from the top of the hill down the valley to where was actually the original part of Veliko Turnovo, and there was the Church of the 40 Martyrs. And this is where the original Bulgarian state was proclaimed, and the modern state was also proclaimed from. And it's a very ancient church, but actually, there's not a lot left. It reminded me very much of Lege in Albania, where this ancient church has been kind of reconstructed by the communists into a national shrine. And so numerous of the old Tsars are buried there. Not Tsars, the Khans, the original rulers of Bulgaria. But again, the building is virtually new because there was so little left of the original. And there was a few fragments of frescoes in the old bit, but very, very new. But it was a very pretty setting. And then further on down the road, there was another church that was where the old patriarchate was. So the patriarchate was situated in the church on Saravet Citadel, which is a big castle on the top of the hill at Veliko Turnovo. But then when the Ottomans came, they moved it to this church down in the valley. And that's where the patriarchate, it was the Greek patriarch, because they didn't have their own Bulgarian patriarch in those days. And that was a wonderful church, again, done up during the Zhivkov era, I think as part of this whole nationalism drive. But they did a good job of it, and it was this nice church with some beautiful frescoes in it, a great one of the Dormition of Mary and the family tree of Jesus. And I was having a really good chat with the lady who was the caretaker there. Next to it, or just a little bit down, there was some baths from this second Bulgarian kingdom, I think they were from. And then we crossed the river on the wooden bridge. Apparently, from this bridge, they in the winter, the priest throws a cross into the river, and men jump into the icy water to try and get it back. That sounds healthy. As my friend Alex said, he said, "Well, I don't think the Church of England would approve of that." But then the Church of England doesn't seem to like anything that's particularly religious. There was a great church on the other side as well, but it was closed. We did ring the number where they said, "Come and if you ring this number, they'll come and open it for you," and they just hung up on us. So okay. Then we were meant to be going to another Trapezica hill, this hill across, which is actually the very original part of Veliko Turnovo. But there's a funicular up, but it wasn't working, and we couldn't be bothered to walk up it, so I might do that another day. So we went back to the little bit in the old town. There was another church, again shut. Crossed back over the river, walked up to the city again, and then into the Tsarevets citadel, which is the main castle, and indeed it was a citadel. I mean, I think several thousand people lived there at one time. It was under siege. I think it was in 1391 for several months, I think, before they capitulated to the Ottomans. And to be honest, it looks really impressive from a distance, but it's not that great because there's very little of the original left. And so what you largely see is a rebuild under the Zhivkov communist era. And I think a lot of it was done around the 1300th anniversary of the Bulgarian state, when this nationalist patriotism thing, like it's this orgy of patriotism, where they were trying to reinforce the regime at the time. So yeah, there's this rebuild with some of the towers are a bit concrete in places, and then on the very top, there's the palace, and that's little bit that there is a rebuild, and we couldn't even see that properly because they were having an opera there on Friday, so all the seats and everything was set out for the opera. But then on the very top is the church, which was the original patriarchate. But that is, again, a complete rebuild. But inside, there were some very striking modern frescoes that I asked when they were painting this in 1973, and they were very striking, very pain. They seemed to just resound with pain. So they were religious and secular in nature, but there just seemed to be a lot of pain and suffering in them. So the artist was clearly not a happy chappy or lady. Then went back, came back to the hotel, had a snooze, and then in the evening we went to a restaurant. Alex very kindly treated me. He said he was doing it because I drive for him, which may be true, but he did it last holiday as well. And he really does like buying fine wine and fine dining, and he very kindly, this is 2 holidays in a row he's done this. And one of my complaints earlier is, like, Bulgaria is brilliant, but it doesn't have a khan or a caravanserai, one of those Ottoman inns. And we went to a wonderful one in Cyprus, and I've been to one in Bosnia, one in Romania, numerous in Turkey. So it's just a shame there isn't one in Bulgaria. But there is one in Turnovo. It's not a very big one, but it is quite nice. It's only 19th century, but it's pretty spectacular, and it's a restaurant. So we went to this restaurant, we had a lovely meal, and with some fine wine, and it was all very civilized. It was great. And so I came back and we sat on the balcony and chewed the fat a little, and now he's having a sleep and I'm making this video. And that is all from me, Uncle Travelling Matt. Keep
Ой, доня, маре, доня,